Clint, have you found certain times of the day to be better for particular practices?
What I think is, I think most people, and I say this from client experience, most people just have a hard time finding time to do them, period.
Mm.
With all the life stuff going on and all the things they have to do during the day, a lot of them will even bail out on coaching because they just don't have time to practice anymore at times. And so I would just say do them whenever you can. And you can do auto suggestion throughout the day. You can pray throughout the day. There's a lot of things you can do throughout the day that will benefit you. You can live in the great here now and live in the vacancy of mind throughout the day. So there's things you can do throughout the day. I personally have always practiced in the evening, and a couple of hours kind of before bedtime. And that has been what's most effective for me and most convenient. And so, after the practices, I'm deeply kind of charged and relaxed at the same time, and I'm able to just go to sleep a lot easier. But I would say do them whenever you can. Morning and night seems to be a good routine, but if you can't do that, just do them. Just do them. I think that's a lot of people struggle.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Yeah, just getting your reps in every day, and finding that pocket of time. And obviously, some people, if you've got kids, it's the kids are going to kind of dominate a lot of what happens in your day. And so, yeah, totally wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Philip Harris Smith. Have you found certain times of the day to be better for particular practices?
Yes, but Clint's totally right. Sometimes it's a question of, do you have a time at all? I mean, doing a practice at a certain time produces a habit. You do get a force of habit, and it's great when that's possible. But sometimes it just isn't. Something crops up that disrupts your habit, and so in the end, it's just this kind of relentless drive just to keep doing what you're doing, especially if you're starting to make progress with that particular piece of work. And in the end, because you're getting some traction, you just know that as long as you keep doing it, whether it's morning, noon, or night, or whenever, you just feel that progress. But it is optimal to have a set time of day. That's why monasteries have such strict regimes, because they know it's effective. But unfortunately, as Clint points out, in our modern world, unfortunately, that's not always feasible. But it is preferable.
Yeah. Wonderful, thank you. Didi, how about yourself? Have you found certain times of the day to be better for particular practices?
Well, I love to practice in the mornings, and I have a dog that wakes me up in the morning, so there is no excuse to just go out of bed. I love to journal, but it depends on if the dog is really like, okay, I want to go outside. Sometimes I skip it, but most of the days I will journal. And then the dog is just sitting next to me till I'm ready. And then I go outside. And then what I love about having a dog, then you're outside and there your practice starts. Because now you can connect. You can, you have the trees around you. You walk in nature. So I always love to do some pour breathing, just by walking the dog is like a great time. And then when I come back home, that's when I do more of the physical training, jump on the
little trampoline, the rebounder.
Yeah. and then do some yoga, some stretching, maybe some kettlebell training. And in the meantime, he's cooking our breakfast. So
Yeah.
I've set it all up. I've just, I've said, this is like, normal morning routine. So I think I've just created the perfect way of making sure that I do all that. And if I have more time, then I love to do, other work. Maybe after breakfast, we'll sit and we'll do some, go into a kasha, white light. It depends. Sometimes we have to work, but other days that we have more time, we'll go into that. And sometimes that is also part of our starting our work day.
Yeah,
to do that. So
for sure.
and what the thing is, so I love to do the practice in the morning, but you take it into your day, and it's
Yes.
more of a 24-hour practice that way. And always you have days that you cannot practice if you go travel or whatever reason, and you feel that there is something different to your day. So I always love to do it in the morning and then continue training for the rest of the day. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I have to say, like, I love, I for some reason I get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I just do it, right. Get up for maybe an hour or two and just sit outside. It's so quiet. There's a creek, like a waterway just down below. And so I can tune into that. But there's also, like, if I go back to bed and then get up again at say 6 or 7, there's a freshness in the air just prior to sunset it's like an aliveness or a vitality that you get first thing in the morning. There's kind of a thing at night, but there's something in the morning when it's just prior to the sun where you can kind of harvest that, especially with pore breathing. So I've got a section of bush down the back. I go hang out there, maybe take a coffee down. All the birds are we got lots of cute little like, funky little birds and things that like to hang out and say good morning and that. And so that morning setup is wonderful. And but like you said, sometimes life does happen, and we make the best of what we can. Armand, how about yourself?
Okay, yeah. Well, I cook in the mornings, as you know. It's that's my practice. I cook with my elastic body and move energy. No, but I'm just kidding. So from a qigong standpoint, it makes sense that you do the more yang-related exercises in the morning, where you do bone marrow packing. These things, I cannot do these after a certain time, because if I do those, I just stare at the ceiling at night. I cannot sleep, and I definitely need my sleep. So those sort of practices would be in the mornings. For sure. There's also a ritual I go through every day. In the morning, I just go through the first 2 transformations, make sure I'm in expanded mental state. I want to tune into gratefulness, make sure that I really charge my energy in a way that I want to feel that day. So I just determine my state, and that's the least I do. And then there's power stretches, and there's yoga. Every day I want to stretch my body, but I do that in the morning. Sometimes I do it a little bit later if I had an intense day, to stretch my calves or to make sure that when I go to sleep, that's been done. But I think my routines change. When I was really into when I started out, I was very lucky because I was a musician. So I would start. I always taught as well, so that would start somewhere in the afternoon and then going into the night. But I was always so lucky that I had like the mornings and part of the afternoon just training, like my Tai Chi training, etc. So I had chunks of time then to really develop. And now that time it's different. But I totally agree with Clint, though. It's like you can always practice something, and I have my topics, so my practice has been narrowing down to specific things right now. So I want to make sure that some physical is happening, but I have my topics that I can play with 24 hours a day. And when I was studying with Mark, he recognized that. He was like, "You're one of those 24-hour types." He said to me, like, "So, when you walk in the park, you practice air element, right? You walk with the dog, like bring the energy up and float yourself through the park, etc." So, and I really like to live my practice, and also teach this to students as well, because we all have busy lives, and like Clint says also, you know, we have to make the best out of the time we have. I totally agree. You know, it's you practice whenever you can. We have a luxury that we can live this way right now, and it's totally very grateful for that. But yeah, you know.
Thank you. Yeah, and this is it. Like, it keeps coming back to this. You know, finding ways to integrate the practices throughout the course of the day, because I think at some point it's like, you know, you've got this. You know, it's not the book, but you know, you've got this book, and you're going through it, or you've got your set of practices mapped out, and it's like it becomes this other thing that you do. But essentially, you know, over time, it just becomes part of who you are, and you know, it starts to fuse into everything anyway. You know, when you go make a food choice at a supermarket, you know, the way that you explore that food choice may be different prior to learning mental transference, for example, or your clairsentient skills. You're like, you know, it's like how you choose food, you know, like it's like suddenly you'll notice these things. And so exploring how it can be leveraged in the everyday world for essentially better decision making, better practices lead to better outcomes, and these types of things. I think this is where you know, if and this there's somebody's dropped a question in here, and they're struggling with consistency with the practice, even though they have time. So I'll put it up here, and I'll pass this one to Philip first. But basically, the nostalgia is saying, I can't be consistent with the practice, even though I have time. So they want to do it. Maybe they're getting a bit struggling to get over the start line each day, and I can understand that. You know, and so Philip, have you got any advice for someone who has the time but struggling to get into it? I mean, you basically just got to do it, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm reminded of Mr. Aleister Crowley's poetry, which he very modestly called the Holy Books of Thelema, and he sort of lazily, vigorously, ardently, slovenly, all these things to thee, O Lord. And I think that might help. It's if you can't do anything, don't shy away from it in your mind. You think about it. Another analogy, many years ago, I had to do I was one of 5 people who actually succeeded in passing an essay on the first few pages of Plato's Republic, and everyone else had to do it again, and I had a week off. It was great. But all that week, because it was such a difficult nut for me to crack, I was thinking about it. I mean, I'm not going to go into the details of it because it's not germane, but I was going to this corner shop. I was thinking about this essay. I was, doing the cooking. I was thinking about one particular thing that I was stuck on, and then I go and read, and it's the same with Hermetic work. Sometimes you're just too cheesed off with stuff. Just that, whatever it is, maybe there's something in the world that's interfering with it. I don't know, but it's got to be in your core, and the way to do that is kind of, I mean, people talk a lot about magical oaths. You don't have to do an oath. I make an oath that I will practice every day at 5 a.m. Otherwise, I'll experience dreadful aches and pains due to sinfully not doing it. That's the wrong kind of oath. Okay, the right kind of oath is, I sincerely pledge my allegiance to you, O divine providence, or whatever. I'm not going to narrow it down. So your oath is that you pledge your allegiance through thick and thin to a particular principle, and then these practices are part of that principle. And life this is in a way it is just a re-expression of the kind of thing that Clint was talking about. Life waxes and wanes, and so does our practice. So you just keep it as a constant thread through the up and the down, and in that way you will achieve progress, even if it's 2 minutes one day, but then it's half an hour the next. It's because you have your allegiance. You've made an oath of allegiance to a spiritual principle. And then that directs you, despite being strong or weak, depending on the day, depending on the circumstances. That will enable you to continue your steady traction and steady progress. That would be my suggestion. So literally an oath of allegiance, rather than an oath of, I will promise to do this every day. Of course you aren't going to, you know, some days you're going to play a video game. That's what I do sometimes, you know, whatever pointless thing that you sometimes do to fill your time, because you need sometimes to do pointless things. You know, it's part of the human condition that we all need to do pointless, silly things from time to time. You know, so you make an oath to a principle, a spiritual principle. It can be, you know, I'm a magician. It can be a magical oath. I, by my holy guardian angel, I swear by divine providence that I will aspire to make myself more than I am currently as a human, through thick and thin, centimeter by centimeter, millimeter by millimeter. I swear to you, divine providence, that I will progress. And then some days you won't do much, and then other days you'll do loads, but it becomes your compass point, and it helps with this lassitude that everyone experiences. You know, I can probably say more, but I think that'll probably cover it.
Wonderful, thank you. Armand, have you got something you can offer the nostalgia?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I cannot see, of course, what the struggle is. I don't know the person, but what really helped me was when someone said to me, you train for the benefit of others.
Oh, yes.
Right. So this might not make sense for the person right now, but you actually do, because you're an energy being in an energy reality. So your energy is interacting with this energy, and you have an effect in this energy, right? So the better you become as a human being, as this energy being, the more will come back to you. But eventually you train for the benefit of others, because you're going to be, when you train, you're going to be a light in the world, right? So something can go through you, like through the pipeline, and you know, so there's meaning there, right? There's true meaning in that. And when someone said that to me, it's like click, something just clicked and shifted in my whole awareness. And every time I found a struggle with that, I was like, oh, I'm too much concerned with myself right now. And so I put that on the black mirror, right? It's like, okay, you know, so you train for the benefit of others. Just think about it, contemplate that for a while. And I think, you know, with what you were saying just right now, I think this is sort of in the same thing, right? It's a spiritual practice and a spirit. So what is your gift here in this world, right? What is it? What's your goal here? Can you see that? What's beyond this? It always will be something that is of service in some way for the benefit of others. So that's my thing.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, and you know, if you can discover the joy in service, that is a very valuable treasure in the long run, because it gives you a sense of purpose while you might be seeking a sense of purpose. It'll do for now, you know, because other things will come up. You can't help not be of service. If you're essentially refining and empowering yourself, you're actively helping people out. You may not just be able to notice it at the moment. I mean, when I was in my earlier days and I was giving people advice on how they should live their lives, because I was an idea hamster. Hey, you should do this, you should do that. Nothing was happening. I turned inward, I started making internal changes, and then I noticed that the external world started to change and improve. And it was like, well, I'm changing me, and for some reason I'm seeing changes in the external world. Well, I'll figure it out as I go along, but this is producing some satisfying results for me. But yeah, joy in service, and I love that too, because at the beginning of the Mark Rasmus book, he talks about the doing it for the coming generations, essentially, so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. And we can have this progressive evolution rather than people having to start again and search and start again. So, Mr. Clint Sabom, have you got something you can offer on this?
Well, what came to mind in the first question I would ask this person is, do you have an altar? Do you have an altar? And I would say, build an altar. Or, I mean, you don't have to build one, literally build. but like set up something that serves as an altar. Put things that are sacred to you on the altar. If you don't even have things, go to a thrift shop. Look at statues and different things you could put on your altar. Have fun decorating the altar, even if it's just on a little podium and you've got a space on a little podium in your room. You could put a statue of a god or goddess. You could put just objects that have certain meanings for you. You could even ask the universe to give you certain objects, and maybe a feather will appear in your path one day. Maybe there'll be an interesting looking rock, and you could have fun just gathering sacred objects. And then put some candles on your altar and light the candles and light the incense and turn off the lights in your room, and then just have fun staring at the beautiful altar you created. And then you're done. That's it.
Yep.
just enjoy making the altar and lighting it up and seeing what happens. And I think that kind of gets you into a spiritual mentality, into a magical mentality, into a magical world, you know, and you've created an altar and you're building an altar, you know, and just kind of light it up. Open it up. You could even say a little blessing, opening up the altar, and basically have fun staring at the altar. And then you're done. And if you want to do something else one day, you could even talk to the altar. Imagine that your spirit guides and your ancestors are kind of through the altar, coming through you. And then just talk to them and tell them about your day, like they're friends, you know, and that's kind of a form of prayer and asking for help, you know. I mean, looks kind of weird talking to yourself in front of others. You may want to be alone doing this, but yeah, just talk to them and have fun looking at the altar. And it can get you into a spiritual mentality in a magical world. And then you're like, wow, I'm in this kind of magic. And then you can kind of take pride that you're a blooming magician in the works of magic. And that's going to be a motivator to get you to practice. So that's what I would do at first. And then if you want to do something more, I would suggest doing a Zen meditation. I've mentioned this in my videos. I would suggest doing a meditation where you breathe in and out. That's 1, in and out. That's 2, in and out. That's 3, and breathe all the way from 1 to 200, counting your breaths. And if you lose count, which you could often do because the mind will start racing, you don't have to go back to the beginning. Just go back to approximately where you thought you were and keep counting from that point and go to 200 breaths. And so building the altar, having fun with the altar, lighting it up, talking to your spirit guides in the altar, coming through the altar, and then try the 200 breaths. And if that takes a month to get to that point where you're just doing that, that's fine. That's totally fine. You've gotten the ball rolling. And so, yeah, I think that altar would really motivate you, you know? So that's just an idea.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Yeah, I think I'm setting up some physical ascetics, setting up sacred, portioning off a section of your dwelling, and then making, bringing beautiful things there, specialness, and just waxing on specialness through objects that you find on your way, seemingly unlikely, coincidental things that stand out. And yeah, I really love that response. Thank you, Clint. Didi, have you got something you can share for nostalgia?
Yeah, I love all the other answers. So I'm like, maybe very practical one is like for me, it started with like if I just give myself 10 minutes and then I can, well, the person who asked the question said, I have enough time, but just set a specific time where you want to practice. Like every morning, you can take 10 minutes at first, and when you see results, you might want to practice more. So just take just enough time to have a certain feeling around it, and then the next day try to do it again and try to build a routine around it. That really helped me. Just to set, and once I got started, I just felt so much better that I wanted to continue and take more time and take more time. And then I got up earlier to have more time to practice. So it really, you have to kind of start somewhere and then just say, okay, that's another thing. So give yourself like 21 days and just say, okay, these 21 days, every morning, I'm going to take 10 minutes to do something. And then repeat. And after 21 days, you can choose, do I want to continue or am I not going to continue? But probably you will have some result from doing these practices for 21 days. So you want to continue. So maybe it's more a practical.
It's like
approach.
If you have too much time, it can even be a bit daunting. It's like, so I should be doing everything in this time and have all this luxury of time, and maybe you mean you bring it back to a little amount of time. It's like, that's where am I going to do it? Yeah. I like that.
Make it practical and give yourself a routine.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say, like, if you're looking for, like, there's going to be an aspect of you that's going to fight the desire to do these practices. You can't help that. Bardon talks about this in the book. You've basically got internal resources that aren't part of the team yet, and you're trying to get them on board, right? And so one of the ways that I've found, after teaching kids who wanted to play like Hendrix or whatever, but they didn't practice, and it's like they would see me play and they'd be like, man, I want to do that. And I was like, well, bro, you got to play and you got to learn to listen and da. But I'd say to them, look, you're going to get home, you're going to have your guitar sitting there, and you're going to be looking at it going, oh, there's going to be all these conflicting weird things going on. Okay, you just go, okay, you acknowledge that there's these weird things going on. I don't want to practice. Okay, that's cool. Talk to that part of yourself like it's a child and go, okay, that's fine. You can just keep saying that. I don't want to practice. And then what you do is that while you're saying to yourself, I don't want to practice, you just pick up the guitar or you pick up the book or you pick up the exercise and you do it anyway while this other thing's going on. You basically bypass this lesser aspect of yourself, and that will come into line. It wants to help you out, but it's got other things from other programs. The auto suggestion is great too. That's such a great tool. Like, you get your beads, you rock them out, 108 repetitions of I practice every day, or you frame it in the first person, in the positive, and in the present tense. Auto suggestion is one of the best tools, man. I can't speak highly enough of it. But thank you, Nostalgia, and thank you for all those wonderful responses.